masyarakat Islam semakin berasa terpinggir.
We have an ideological problem, and if I could mention a Salafist movement, a jihadist Salafist movement right here in Australia, which asserts that the response of a Muslim in any time, whether it's a time of war or a time of peace, that the response of a Muslim towards the rest of the world is one of war and violence. And we know that this cannot be true because the name of this religion is peace.
You got your casual racist dumb fuck who's too dumb to realise they're being duped by neo-Nazis.
Our non-Muslim politicians, they can make such a difference to the Muslim experience, and we see it. We see it when we see leaders who adamantly take a stance that is supportive of the Muslim community, and we see it when they make us as a problem.
And these concerns were raised so many times to the government, to the politicians, to the Australian leaders in many different occasions. Their attitude, their approach does not help the situation.
The world has to look at not peace. The world has to look at justice. And I think the radicalisation will slowly, diminish. But as long as this is injustice, and it's very clear injustice, you're always going to get that.
Bolehkah masyarakat Islam mencari damai di Australia? Australia dikenali dengan sikap keterbukaan dan penerimaan terhadap kelainan. Inilah antara sebab lebih setengah juta masyarakat Islam memilih Australia untuk membina kehidupan baru.
Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, who come a waltzing Matilda with me. And he sang as he watched.
Gereja di Toowoomba ini, sebuah pekan kecil di Queensland, Australia, sedang merayakan Good Friday. Tidak jauh dari gereja itu, terdengar laungan azan dari sebuah masjid.
My respected brothers, today is Good Friday. My respected brothers, all this confirms that he was legal. He was legal born baby.
Jemaah sedang khusyuk mendengar khutbah sebelum solat Jumaat.
In two words in Surah Maryam.
Masjid Garden City di Toowoomba ini mempunyai sejarah yang menarik. Bangunan ini asalnya sebuah gereja yang tidak lagi digunakan. Masyarakat Islam Toowoomba mengumpulkan dana membeli bangunan ini untuk dijadikan sebuah masjid.
Initially, we thought that we'll buy a block of land and we subdivide it, and some people will live there and part of it will be mosque. But when we contacted the council, city council, they said this is not going to work because the place of worship has to have certain criteria, which is quite restrictive and difficult to get it. For many years, we tried our best. Then finally, we thought that it's probably only option we have is to purchase an existing place of worship.
Semasa perbincangan untuk membeli bangunan gereja ini, terdapat beberapa rungutan dan bantahan daripada segelintir masyarakat Kristian di sini.
There were some people I knew that they didn't like the mosque to be here. I know, openly. There are some people like that, and they create different excuses to blame Muslims of the things that that they don't like. But I think when they engage with us, when they talk to us, things become more clear, and I think all of them are convinced now that this is not going to be anything bad for them, and they are not unhappy as far as we know.
Bishop Joseph adalah padri besar di Gereja Katolik Toowoomba sejak 2012. Dia pernah bertugas di Sydney sebelum berpindah ke Toowoomba yang agak terpencil.
Well, it even goes back before my time of coming to Toowoomba within the Diocese of Parramatta. The bishop there, Bishop Manning at the time, very much involved in relationships with the Muslim community there within Sydney. And I was involved with him with relationships there and come to know a number of Muslim people very well and closely. And it's one of the things, even in relation to the Catholic religion, we talk about our interreligious dialogue with members of other faith communities. So coming to Toowoomba, that relationship already existed between the Catholics and the Muslim community here.
Pada 4 April 2015, satu bantahan anti-Islam berlangsung di seluruh Australia.
So why are we here? We assert the honesty, the need for honesty in recognizing what is happening.
Tunjuk perasaan di dataran King George di Brisbane ini dihadiri lebih 1,000 orang.
Imposition of more and more trappings of Sharia.
We have churches, we have temples and halls of Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff. Naturally, as the population of Muslim people in Australia will increase, they'll need more mosques.
Athletic facilities for Muslim women and Muslim prayer rooms at all AFL venues at public expense.
Always will be. Always was.
There's another group, they call themselves Reclaim Australia. So if you want to reclaim that, you have to be all Aborigines. I said, no, we want to, go back to Australian values. What do you mean by values? So like, if you have fairness, equity, love, caring, these are all values Australian, they all value Islamic, and every Muslim, adhere to these values.
Malangnya, 2 minggu selepas rakaman ini dibuat, Masjid Garden City ini telah dibakar dengan sengaja oleh kumpulan anti-Islam. Ini adalah kali kedua ia diserang sedemikian dalam masa 18 bulan. Tapi kali ini, ia mengalami kerosakan besar di Dewan Solat Utama.
I could see my mom. She cried every day. She cried every day.
Terletak 15 km dari Sydney, bandar ini dipenuhi kedai dan restoran makanan halal. Wanita berhijab serta lelaki berkopiah dan berjambang menyusuri sepanjang jalan ini. Inilah Lakemba yang dikenali secara tidak rasmi sebagai perkampungan Arab Australia.
My auntie, my dad's sister. She's the queen of the family.
Oh, thank you.
Sejak awal pagi, Fedi Ghazal dan bapanya sudah sibuk di restoran mereka. Restoran Jasmine menyajikan makanan Lubnan dan merupakan yang pertama memperkenalkan falafel di Australia.
My brother-in-law, he opened a shop, a sweet shop in Surrey Hills. Then my father, he's a cook and he started to make some falafel. There was no Lebanese bread beforehand. We started to do some Lebanese bread, bake it on the spot, and give it falafel sandwich. The people, there was a church in Cleveland Street, and the people, when they finish praying, they come, have falafel sandwich. That's the first time in Australia they sell falafel and Lebanese rolls.
Freddy dilahirkan dan membesar di Sydney. Zaman persekolahannya penuh cabaran.
It was different for us in the beginning, going to school and being the odd ones out. But I guess you learn from what you see around you in life. So, for instance, at home, we're only allowed to speak Arabic. But when we're outside of home, with our friends or our cousins, we're speaking English. But growing up in the country, I guess it was very easy for us. I think it was harder for our parents. When our parents came here, they were probably in a class of 20. There were one Lebanese, so that was them. But for us, growing up, there was, say, a few Lebanese, some Greek, some Italian, so it made it easier for us.
Encik Abdul Latif berhijrah dari Lubnan bersama ibu bapanya ketika berusia 9 tahun. Sepanjang 50 tahun berada di Australia, dia melalui banyak pengalaman pahit getir sebagai seorang pendatang.
We came here in 1967. We came here at the end of 1967. I was 10 years old, and my father, he said, we're only staying here for 4 years.
He gets emotional.
He said, only we're staying for 4 years, and then we're going back to the country. 4 years? Sorry, 50 years. I could see my mom. She cried every day. She cried every day because she had very hard life here.
It was hard for them when they came. My grandparents, being here from an Arab background, and you're here new to the country, you don't know nobody.
There was not much Lebanese people here.
Yeah.
When we start to grow up and we start to know where to go together, we go to school, we go there. That started to change. The family grown big, and people came from overseas, come to live here. They know the people. They start to change the life. You get used to the life here.
Sebahagian besar masyarakat Islam Australia adalah pendatang dari Lubnan. Ramai daripada mereka mula berhijrah ke Australia pada tahun 1970-an sebagai pelarian perang. Waktu mereka mula tiba di Sydney, tiada masjid atau sekolah dan kegiatan untuk masyarakat Islam. Ini memaksa keluarga Islam mendidik keluarganya sendiri supaya tidak lupa tentang asal-usul mereka.
A lot of it was at home, strict at home. And then, for instance, we'll have a imam, my father will know, to bring to our place twice a week, and he'll teach us. Before, you see, the community was very small. There wasn't Islamic schools. There wasn't Islamic classes. There's nothing for us that actually, you know. And my father was, his Arabic wasn't strong in writing and reading. My mother was. My father wasn't as strong, so it was hard. He was at work 15 hours a day sometimes. Mum had to take care of 6 kids.
Tapi kini terdapat lebih 100 buah sekolah dan badan-badan Islam yang melengkapkan masyarakat Islam di Australia. Bahkan, kelas-kelas agama juga diadakan untuk orang bukan Islam. Di United Muslims of Australia, sebuah kelas agama sedang berlangsung. Said Kanawati mengajar tentang tahara atau penyucian dalam Islam. Tapi sebahagian besar pelajarnya adalah mereka yang bukan Islam.
Thinking that they are doing the right thing, but in fact they are doing something that is so totally incorrect. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. When I was growing up in Australia, there were hardly any Muslims in where I was brought up. As a matter of fact, there were probably, you can count on your fingers the amount of ethnic people there were. You couldn't really get the feeling, for example, of Ramadan, you know. You couldn't get the feeling of something called halal food. You couldn't even get the feeling of something called Jum'ah. Then all of a sudden, more and more Muslims, more and more mosques, more and more organisation, more and more imams, you know, and you start to get now the feeling there's a community that you belong to.
Malangnya, imej masyarakat Islam Australia tercemar dalam satu kejadian keganasan di tengah-tengah kesibukan kota Sydney. Pada 15 Disember 2014, seorang lelaki yang mengaku Muslim menyerang sebuah kafe di Martin Place.
My feeling towards the Sydney siege when it happened was just one of absolute horror. You know, there was this really iconic photo of some of the hostages being forced to hold up that flag. And obviously, you know, that flag now sadly has all these terrible political ramifications, but at its core, what's on the flag is the Shahada, is the declaration of belief for Muslims. And to see that being used in that way as a Muslim is devastating. And then once the siege had finished and it was all over, then the genuine fear about, when I'm walking the streets, do people think I agree with that guy? Do people think that this man is somehow representative of what the rest of us think?
You know, it drove us to actually start to learn our religion, because it was things that really kind of shake your faith. Is this my religion? You know, my religion is one of peace, you know, one of serving God, one that, you know, is passive, not violent.
I was in Sydney during the Sydney siege, and my number one worry was, how am I stepping up from this hotel room? How will people look at another hijabi? I was truly petrified. I was afraid. And I thought, you know what, this happened so closely to me. I was only 2 blocks away. And during the whole thing, I was not afraid. I was more angry. I was upset that this is happening. The last thing I hope was a Muslim guy who did it.
Me and my cousin went down to Martin Place after the siege, where people were actually putting down like flowers in terms of the memorial. And the people there were just honestly like the amount of hugs and kisses I've got, you know, from random strangers thanking me for actually coming, you know.
Profesor Greg Button dari Universiti Monash giat dalam usaha membangunkan pemahaman antara agama dan juga seorang pakar dalam isu keganasan.
I don't think personally this was an intelligence failure. I don't blame the authorities for not seeing it coming, but we have to learn some intelligence lessons. Frankly, I don't think there's any guarantee we can avoid such things in future. It's very, very hard. But our best line of defence is to pay attention to family members and people close who will be the first ones to see that somebody may have concerns. There are over 100 young Australians whose passports have been withheld because their mother or their sibling or father has spoken up out of concerns.
So why shouldn't I join this group? Why shouldn't I be radicalised, and why shouldn't I join up with this particular group and become like them? You know, because this is where they believe that they fit in. So it's only logical that as a human, you want to belong somewhere, you want to fit in somewhere.
The day after he queues a few hours. On the weekend, Bismillah, mashallah, he queues days. Where does he stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
Kehadiran masyarakat Lubnan di Sydney banyak mengubah wajah sosioekonomi negara itu. Ramai anak muda berbangsa Lubnan terperangkap dengan keasingan diri di tengah-tengah kota metropolitan ini.
You're doing it to save yourself from hellfire. What are you doing?
People who get the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Imam Afroz, seorang ulama dan tokoh Islam terkemuka Australia, banyak terlibat dengan usaha membantu golongan muda yang hilang arah.
Right? It's a very hell-based world. If you don't do this, you will be punished. And this was from the... Much of this actually occurs because of a post-war syndrome that's actually coming from essentially Lebanon and Palestinian backgrounds, Jordan, etc. And when parents have come over here, they have, if I could use the word obsessively, tried to get these youngsters to become educated in the secular system, which they have not been able to connect with because of the change in society. They have been misfits. They actually have had a cultural shock. And when that effort was being made, but no effort to make them ethical human beings, to teach them adab through Islam, this has been completely devoid in their lives. And this is a slippery slope to criminal activity.
Jam 5 petang, Bilal Khadir sibuk melatih sekumpulan pelajar di padang bola. Namun, setelah masuk waktu maghrib, dia berhenti untuk mendirikan solat. 10 tahun dahulu, anak muda ini hampir sesat dalam kehidupan. Dia menceritakan kehidupan membesar dikelilingi dengan tekanan sebagai orang asing.
Not being part of social groups, even though this was only primary school, and always being shunned away by the other class members because I was different, you know, not blonde hair, blue eyes. Because we were quite different and our traditions were quite different as well, students actually picked up on that. And because of that reason, they saw me as a different person, as an other. Yeah. As I said, the youth that I described earlier, the youth who were growing up and stealing and committing crimes and these sort of things, these were my typical friends at the time. Also of Lebanese background, also of Muslim background. However, we didn't actually understand anything about Islam.
Golongan yang terpinggir ini melibatkan diri dalam jenayah dan kemudian menemui sesuatu yang menerima kelainan mereka.
When they start to see factions, when they start to see groups which cause radicalization of Muslims, it sort of triggers their sense of this is where I should belong. You know, these people will be accepting of me and who I am. So why shouldn't I join this group? Why shouldn't I be radicalized, and why shouldn't I join up with this particular group and become like them?
Imam Afroz pernah mengkaji punca kecenderungan golongan muda Islam terhadap fahaman ekstremis.
We have an ideological problem, and if I could mention a Salafist movement, a jihadist Salafist movement right here in Australia, which asserts that the response of a Muslim in any time, whether it's a time of war or a time of peace, that the response of a Muslim towards the rest of the world is one of war and violence. And we know that this cannot be true because the name of this religion is peace. This cannot be true. However, youth are impressionable people. And if you are going to tempt them with money, if you're going to tempt them with sexuality, if you're going to tempt them with wonderful trips around the world, and if you can then actually make this sound that this is actually, that if you're going to be killed in this path, that you go to heaven, 8 out of 10 of these people who enter into extremist groups and ultimately travel overseas or think to do something wrong actually come from a criminal background.
Well, I think we need to understand that people tend not to make a decision overnight to do an act of violence. What happens is they form a new sense of social belonging. They join a new family, a kind of virtual family. They identify with that group. They make new friends. They find answers. They have a sense of belonging. Their self-esteem is built. They feel that the life is important. Then they're told with groups like Islamic State, you can't be a proper Muslim unless you make hijrah, you leave your family, leave comfort, join with the Jamaat, join with the community in Iraq, Syria, and then you have to be part of the Khalifa. So that is the logic which they come to understand. And then maybe there's some attraction of it's exciting to go and become a fighter if you're...
Sesuatu yang menggerakkan Bilal untuk berubah dan keluar daripada lingkaran bahaya yang menjerumuskan ramai anak-anak muda Islam.
For me personally, it was just a matter of completely cold turkey, completely saying no more to the friends that I used to hang out with, and then bringing on some new friends and being in a very good environment, which was good for me and good for my own deen and own iman. One of the things which helped me quite a lot was actually getting married. So alhamdulillah, as soon as I got married, that was a big push forward for me to start being a lot more responsible and taking care of my own life.
Sheikh Shadi adalah seorang imam dan pendakwah yang banyak membantu memulihkan golongan muda yang terjebak dalam ekstremisme. Menurutnya, pemulihan pemikiran ekstremis tidak mudah dan memakan masa.
What we mainly focus on is to tackle and counter that type of thinking, radicalization. These people have been indoctrinated, and we need to counter that by sending the right message across. And it needs a lot of time and a lot of patience. The Muslim community is doing a lot. The Muslim leaders are doing a lot. The problem is the government's attitude sometimes does not help the situation. The government's approach towards the Muslim community does not help the situation. And these concerns we've raised so many times to the government, to the politicians, to the Australian leaders in many different occasions. Their attitude, their approach does not help the situation. On the contrary, it continues to inflame the situation.
What are we doing here? And where are we gonna go? It's like we just woke up one morning and then it's welcome to the show. Don't ask any questions, just go with the flow. Make as much money as you can and try your best not to get broke. Copy everything you see on the TV, from the hairstyles to the clothes, and don't think too often, just do exactly and where are we gonna go? It's like we just woke up one morning and then it's welcome to the show. Don't ask any questions, just go with the flow.
Kamal Saleh adalah seorang penyair. Puisinya lebih cenderung membicarakan tentang kehidupan orang Islam, dan kini dia semakin mendapat perhatian di alam siber.
As you're told, and if you ever get confused, then just turn towards the alcohol.
Bersama dua orang rakannya, Kamal membentuk satu kumpulan media sosial yang dikenali sebagai Talk Islam bagi menyampaikan dakwahnya.
But in all honesty, I just need to know, is there more to the cycle than growing and getting...
Talk Islam started about 3-4 years ago. It started off with just a few brothers that were interested in doing dawah on the street. And subhanAllah, after 1 year of its initiation, it went to a more of an online approach of dawah, whereby we make YouTube videos, social media posts.
If you don't like it, go live somewhere else. But
Whatever.
these people belong here.
Excuse me? What are you wearing? Like, isn't it a bit too hot to be wearing that stuff outside? Like, seriously, like, don't you find it confronting? This is Australia. We don't have a place for people like this. Don't you want to be part of Team Australia? Don't you think it's a bit hot to wear that? Hey guys, do you see this? You look like a terrorist wearing that. You know that, right? What's in the bag?
Mereka membuat dakwah jalanan dengan merakam uji kaji terhadap tindakan masyarakat Australia apabila berdepan dengan isu Islam dan orang Muslim.
See what she's wearing.
What's wrong with it?
Like, how can she wear this outside? Like, don't you find this confronting?
It's fine, dude.
I can't believe this. Why can't they just be Australian?
We take dawah on a twofold system. We say that we need to counter misconceptions and then teach people about Islam, because it's very hard to teach people about Islam when we have this barrier set up in front of us.
Thing similar starts is when the people who are meant to be, marginalized don't come out and represent themselves, and they allow other people to represent them. And that's what happens. People are talking about Islam, but there's no one talking on behalf of Islam. And so I think that's where there's opportunities for people like us to come in. Really, any Muslim that's sincere, inshallah, just to come and really start speaking.
Are we even human? And are we really real? Because we've been cut so many times, I feel like we forgot what it feels like to feel. I mean, as the days go by, I just grow cold-hearted, a senseless soul, as I say.
Kosmopolitan dan mewah, kawasan di Brighton, Sydney ini dihuni oleh golongan kelas pertengahan kulit putih Australia. Namun, di celah-celah bangunan tersergam indah ini, seorang pemuda kulit putih giat memperjuangkan syiar Islam.
I think also just because of how I look, I'm very much a sort of chameleon, like I just look like, so many other people where I live, and just walking down the street, it's not the sort of thing where I'm visibly Muslim, and that's a big difference there.
Secara fizikal, dia tidak menggambarkan seorang Muslim, apatah lagi yang menyebarkan syiar Islam. Tapi itulah hakikatnya. Peter Gould, memeluk Islam pada usia 20 tahun, adalah tokoh Muslim Australia yang dikenali antarabangsa dalam bidang kesenian grafik.
Yeah, religion was not a big part of my life at all growing up, and really I didn't really have any what I call spiritual type experiences or understanding of Allah or God or any of that. And I got to know one family in particular that really opened my eyes to and my heart to seeing how that, the spiritual feeling that it gave to that family, that sense of purpose, and really the sakina that it gave to Muslims. I just felt there was something in that for me. So I ended up, becoming Muslim, and that really started this whole new chapter of life. So I've worked on a few different kids apps, and I really love working on these kind of projects. One of them, a new one that's come out recently, is New Request, and basically it's Muslim.
Sejak memeluk Islam, karya Peter banyak melambangkan penghijrahannya. Peter dikenali dengan sentuhan moden dan kontemporarinya terhadap kesenian Islam.
So from the Space Quran, so they've got to, you got to choose your little character. And I just see that as why should our Islamic artistic heritage stop in time and just be, something that finished. It's something that it always has been there and will always continue. Like calligraphy evolved. It didn't just get revealed and that was it. Architecture, mosque design as we know it didn't just get revealed and then that was it. Not at all. It took centuries. So I think it's about reflecting that artistic heritage that is beautiful and something that we should all be proud of. And it's universally loved and appreciated. And connecting that to a modern graphic experience through and how that translates to how our digital lives, how we use apps, how we use social media.
Aisyah, 28 tahun, lahir dan membesar dalam keluarga Kristian. Tapi pada usia 18 tahun, dia mengambil langkah berani yang bakal merubah hidupnya.
I grew up as Catholic, and through my questioning at the age of 14, I decided that I wasn't a Christian anymore based on my reasoning and answers to questions I'd asked, until eventually my questioning led me to Islam. Yeah, I basically lost nearly all my friends, actually, except for one of my close friends. I felt quite ostracised and isolated, but it was definitely worth it. Yeah, when I go out dressed like this, I often get stared at. Sometimes I'm treated, I'm ignored. Sometimes, asked lots of questions. Sometimes, you can get a little bit of verbal abuse here and there.
Aisyah kini berpakaian muslimah sepenuhnya, menutup aurat serta menghadkan pergaulannya. Setelah lebih 20 tahun, dia berupaya meyakinkan bapanya memeluk Islam. Adam Arthur Smith, 57 tahun, menemui hidayah pada bulan Ramadan ketika mengunjungi rumah Aisyah. Pada mulanya, Adam mempunyai tanggapan buruk tentang Islam.
My belief is the Muslim men treated the women bad, and that was my belief was that, and what do you want to go and do that for, And I started asking Kirsty some questions, and she said, there's only one God, Dad, and you know that, and I said, yeah, I know, yeah, and she said, so what are you thinking? And I just said, well, there is only one God, and that's, I've always been brought up to believe that, but unbeknownst to me, I was praying to 3 people, with just not even thinking, so that was it. So that night, I think it was that night, I'd done the Shahada.
Setelah memeluk Islam, Adam pulang ke Queensland. Dia menerima nasib serupa Aisyah apabila rakan-rakannya mendapat tahu dia sudah menjadi seorang Muslim.
So, my friends, I've known for years and years, started looking down on me, and that was disappointing. It's hard to take. I accepted that, and they came around eventually.
Kisah Aisyah dan bapanya adalah contoh keindahan Islam yang mendorong ramai kepadanya.
Whether we're Caucasian, Asian, African, Middle Eastern, we're all people. We're the same colour on the inside. We all bleed red. Why bother? Why bother being racist? We're all just people trying to survive.
Pencemaran imej Islam yang berlaku di seluruh dunia turut merubah kehidupan masyarakat Islam Australia. Tanggapan negatif dan prasangka buruk kelihatan semakin meningkat. Mujur juga, masih terdapat ramai warga Australia bukan Islam yang terus berpandangan terbuka untuk menerima perbezaan agama dan kaum.
Our first and foremost challenge is to make sure that Islam is in fact accepted as a mainstream religion. How do we do this? I believe there are three particular things that we need to actually take into account. Firstly, Muslims have a serious urgency that we have to start getting involved into what I call actions of good citizenship. We need to become involved in those things that bring about goodness in Australia.
I think there is a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of our leaders, not just the Muslim leaders in this country, but particularly our non-Muslim politicians. They can make such a difference to the Muslim experience. So I feel hopeful, but there's still a long way to go, and I really want to see, especially non-Muslim politicians, making a stand for us, because where they lead, the people will follow.
Perjuangan golongan seperti Peter, Kamal, dan Bilal semakin sukar. Namun, semangat mereka tidak pudar untuk mencari kedamaian.
Try and bring beauty and showcase what I consider what attracted me to Islam, which is that beauty, and focus on sharing those things with people.
I hope that my children don't get brought into the society that I was brought into when I was in Queensland. And specifically, I would like to see them actually recognised as someone who contributes positively towards Australian society, and not just that you're a lady or you're a man, which is different to us. So now we need to learn how to deal with you differently.
Every single Muslim, young Muslim that knows anything about anything needs to go out there and start teaching other people, start helping other people, and really give back to the community. And you don't have to give back to Muslims. It's not limited to that. Islam's for everyone.
What are we doing here? And where are we gonna go? It's like we just woke up one morning, and then it's welcome to the show. Don't ask any questions, just go with the flow. Make as much money as you can, and try your best not to get broke. Copy everything you see on the TV, from the hairstyles to the clothes, and don't think too often, just do exactly as you're told. But in all honesty, I just need to know, is there more to the cycle than growing and getting old? Living and dying just to leave behind a happy home and a whole lot of property that somebody else is going to own. I just really need to know before the casket's closed, 'cause I'm not willing to gamble with my soul, nor am I ready to take any chances. These are just simple life questions, and I'm just searching for some answers. Like, what are we doing here? And what is our purpose? How did we get here, and who made us so perfect? And what happens once we go, or is this world all really worth it? Questions we don't answer because apparently we don't really have to. There's no purpose to this life and our existence is merely natural. Then in that case, please let me ask you, did you create yourself or was it somebody else who had...